Doctor Doom is the greatest manipulator in the history of the Marvel Universe. But what does that actually mean in the context of Avengers Doomsday? The answer changes everything. Because manipulation, real manipulation, the kind that works on people who should be impossible to deceive, it looks like the truth. Find what someone already believes about themselves, find the wound that already exists, and twist the knife. A man of Victor's intelligence can resist almost anything. There are beings circling Doctor Doom right now. Ancient, cosmic, but Victor Von Doom is manipulating everybody in this film. Everybody. And I don't think any of us are ready for how that plays out. My name is Brayden. This is the Doomsday Clock series. Let's get into it. The leaks around Avengers Doomsday have been pointing at something for months. Doom doesn't arrive alone. There are figures with him, several masked figures. We've also heard that Sue Storm is going to look at these figures and worry that they're corrupting Victor, pulling him towards something dark. In Norse mythology, there are beings called the Norns, fate weavers, connected to Yggdrasil. Most people know them as the Norse version of the Greek fates, mysterious women at a loom, watching destiny unfold. That's all true, and it misses the most important thing about them. The Norns don't just observe fate. They are also responsible for introducing darkness into the world tree. They aren't neutral cosmic observers sitting outside the story. They are active participants in the corruption of Yggdrasil. In Norse cosmology, it is the Norns, not the devil, who weave evil and darkness into the fabric of existence itself. They bring the shadow into the light. And Ragnarok, the end of everything, the collapse of the 9 realms, the death of the gods, and the burning of the world tree, Ragnarok happens because of what the Norns wove in. But out of the destruction comes a new world, a new order, a new god, a new Yggdrasil rising from the ashes of the old one. The end is also a beginning, and the beings who survive and inherit what comes after, those are the ones the Norns were preparing for all along. Now, hold that thought. We know the multiverse is collapsing. The incursions are accelerating. The sacred timeline, the curated construct He Who Remains built, is crumbling. Loki is holding the world tree together from a throne at the end of time, but the branches are still dying. The multiversal Ragnarok is happening. Now, the easy read is that these figures found Victor Von Doom, that ancient cosmic beings looked across the multiverse, identified the most dangerous mind alive, and decided that he was their instrument. But I don't think that's actually what happened. I think Doom found them, and that distinction, it changes everything. So, who did Doom find? Now, I want to be upfront here. The identities of these masked figures are one of the things that Marvel appears to be guarding most carefully. We're not going to know for certain until we're seen in that theater. But Josh over at Den of Nerds has done the most specific work connecting the dots on who these figures actually are. And I think we could be looking at Clea, Sylvie, and Wanda. Now let's talk about why each of these makes the most sense. And more importantly, why Doom would have specifically chosen them. Clea is a sorceress from the Dark Dimension, currently with Doctor Strange. So if one of these figures is going to bridge the space between ancient magic and cosmic power, Clea fits. But here's what is interesting about Clea specifically. She brings Strange into the orbit because the rumors suggest that Strange himself is connected to these figures, but as something closer to an enforcer, a man who understands exactly what Doom is building and has made a choice about whether to stop it. And that choice, if it's real, is one of the most interesting things this film could explore, and we'll come back to it. Sylvie is the Loki variant who killed He Who Remains, which means she is the person most directly responsible for the collapse of the sacred timeline and everything that followed. She pulled the trigger on the beginning of this entire story, and there's a version of this where Sylvie has spent the time since that moment understanding exactly what she set in motion, and deciding that the only way to see it through is to make sure the right person is standing when it's over. Doom would know that, and he would find that useful. Now, Wanda is the most complex of the three, and her role connects to something much bigger than just being one figure among the several. So we're going to give her the space she deserves in the next section, but here's what I want you to hold on to going into that. Doom didn't stumble onto these three people, and he didn't get seduced by their power. He went looking for specific qualities, specific wounds, specific relationships to magic and cosmic authority that would serve what he was building. and Doom built a religion around it. And I actually think there's a good chance this group is referred to as the Black Swans in the film. Sue Storm looks at these figures and sees corruption, sees something pulling Victor toward darkness. But I think what she's actually looking at is a stage, and Victor Von Doom built every piece of it. Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, I just dropped the Doomsday Prep Kit. The free version has your full MCU watch list, key players, the Road to Doomsday timeline, and every RDJ tease since he was cast, all in one place, completely free. The link is in the description. And if you want to go deeper, YouTube memberships are now open, where we have the full Doomsday Prep Kit, which is a living document that I constantly update with tons of new pages that aren't seen in the free version, exclusive Discord access, early access to videos, live streams, behind the scenes updates, and everything in between. So the link for that is also in the description. Anyways, let's get back to it. Now here's where the theory is able to go from abstract mythology to something we can actually see. Because if you look at the official Avengers Doomsday logo, magical runes are carved into the stone of the lettering. Marvel is telling us up front that rune magic and witchcraft are load-bearing parts of this story. And we can also look at the leaked concept art, where Doom is in full armor wearing a magical crown. Josh over at Den of Nerds and Alex Perez have both been pointing at something specific here. Colored crowns, blue, red, purple, green, each figure in Doom's circle channeling a different domain of magic, a different color depending on the kind of power they carry. In WandaVision, Wanda taps into chaos magic, and that red crown appears above her head. Agatha's mother had the blue one. Death in Agatha All Along had the organic green one. The MCU has been quietly building this visual language. And if you think about the Infinity Stones for a second, 6 stones, 6 colors, each one a different type of power, that visual shorthand is what told the audience what the stakes were across the entire Infinity Saga. I think the crowns are doing a similar thing for Doomsday and Secret Wars. Different magical domains, different colors, and each one a different aspect of the power that Victor is assembling. And at the center of all of it, the crown of the Scarlet Witch, which I think Dr. Doom will ultimately receive, possibly from Wanda herself. But why the heck would Wanda give Doom the Scarlet Witch crown? That's the question. And to answer it, you have to go back to something from WandaVision. The Darkhold contains a prophecy. The Scarlet Witch is destined to either destroy or rule the cosmos. Everyone assumed that was about Wanda. She has the chaos magic. She has the crown. She has the power. She spent years believing she was the fulfillment of that prophecy. But here's the thing about prophecies. In mythology, they're almost never about the person everyone assumes they're about. The power of a prophecy is specifically in the misdirection. And I think Doom understood that before anyone else did. Because Victor's mother was a witch. Her soul was taken by Mephisto, and Doom's entire relationship to dark power traces back to her. He taught himself her magic from her old books. He has been a practitioner his entire life. In Norse tradition, and Doom would know this, Odin himself is a he-witch. Loki is a he-witch. The magic doesn't belong exclusively to women. It belongs to whoever is willing to pay the price for it. Both Loki and Victor had witch mothers. That's a pattern we can look at, because patterns in Marvel are never decorative. So I think Doom looked at the Darkhold prophecy and he traced it forward, past Wanda, past the obvious reading to its actual fulfillment. And what he found was himself, which means Wanda Maximoff, who spent years believing she was the center of that prophecy, who sacrificed everything in pursuit of a destiny that was always pointing somewhere else, discovers that she was actually the one who wielded the power long enough for the true heir to arrive and claim it. And I think she gives him the crown, because he showed her the truth about herself. Doom took this beyond just manipulation. He used Wanda's entire identity against her, and the fact that he is probably right about all of it is what makes it so specifically devastating. And I also want to say, just off the cuff here, that Wanda could also ultimately get the crown back for Secret Wars and be the Scarlet Witch that, takes down Dr. Doom or something like that. So that's entirely possible as well. Everyone around Dr. Doom in this film is going to be telling the truth. Sue Storm genuinely believes the witches are corrupting Victor. The Avengers genuinely believe his family was killed by the incursion Steve's time travel set off. The Fantastic Four genuinely believe that they have a history with this man. Strange genuinely believes he's serving something larger than himself. So no one is lying, but none of them are 100% right. Because Dr. Doom is playing 6D chess. He's showing us all what real manipulation looks like at this level. You don't construct a false reality from scratch. That's too fragile. Too many moving parts, too many moments where someone could pull on a thread and the whole thing unravels. What Victor actually does is finds the true things, the real wounds, the beliefs people already hold about themselves and the world. And he builds architecture on top of those. And this is where Joshua Verdena Nerds said something that actually kind of blew my mind. He made the point that by building a movie around a character who is manipulating everybody, whose entire plan depends on people believing a version of events that is accurate to the lie rather than the truth, Marvel has created a situation where the rumors we hear can be completely real and still not tell you what's actually happening in the film. Every insider accurate to the story Doom is telling, but not to what's underneath it. And if that's true, then it's seriously one of the most sophisticated things I have ever heard about how a comic book movie has been constructed. And it means that the people closest to Victor, Sue, Reed, the Avengers, are in the same position as the audience reading the leaks. They have accurate information, and they still can't see the truth, because the truth requires asking a question that nobody around Doom is asking. And it's not, is Victor telling the truth? Instead, it's, which truth is he telling? So we've talked about the three figures, Clea, Sylvie, Wanda. But there's someone else in Doom's orbit that I think is a very fascinating piece of this entire puzzle, Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch supposedly shot scenes for Doomsday on a skeleton crew, separately from the main production. In fact, you guys remember when Cumberbatch did that interview where he said he wasn't in Doomsday and then immediately corrected himself? I don't think that was a slip. He had shot so little under such controlled conditions that he genuinely had to think about whether he was in the film. And this is one of the most recognizable actors on the planet, playing one of the most prominent characters in the MCU. And Marvel went to extraordinary lengths to keep his involvement as invisible as possible. Why? Because, according to rumors, Strange is going to be one of the Golden Mask figures, hidden behind a mask for most of the film, operating inside Doom's inner circle in a way that nobody around him fully understands until it's too late. And the last time we saw Stephen Strange, he had tapped into the power of the Darkhold, and he had left with Clea to stop incursions across the multiverse, incursions that he himself started. So here's a man who already has blood on his hands, who already made choices that cost the multiverse something real, who is already operating in the space between heroism and something darker. And I think that is when Doctor Doom finds him, at his darkest point. Now, what Strange actually does inside Doom's plan, what his specific role is in what's being built, that's something we're getting into next week, because it connects directly to the Fantastic Four, and it's not what anyone is expecting. So here's where we are. Dr. Doom found these characters. He identified the specific wounds and the specific relationships to magic and authority that would serve what he was building. Then he constructed a mythology around himself and stepped into the center of it. Sue Storm looks at the figures circling Victor and sees corruption. What she actually appears to be looking at is a stage, and Doctor Strange, operating behind a golden mask, making choices that are going to cost him everything in the films that follow, is going to be a very interesting thing to explore further. Doctor Doom doesn't get manipulated. He designed all of this to fool everybody. And next week, we find out what that design actually required, what Doom needed from the Fantastic Four, and why the most sophisticated manipulator in the history of the MCU left one variable completely unaccounted for. I'll see you there.